Hello guys and welcome. My name is Mr. Barasa. If you are new here today and if you are a returning subscriber, your time is much appreciated as we are going to look into this topic. As you can see today, I'm going to discuss about 8 ways why the Kenyan Gen Zs are poor. Who are the Gen Zs? These are actually people that are born from 1996 up to 2012. Now, depending on your reference, kind of. So, the Gen Z is actually, the time that I'm making this video is July, and you'll find that Kenya is going into protest. If you're watching me from Kenya, that is, this is where I'm going to discuss more about how the Gen Zs are poor in Kenya. So you'll find that the current economy, currently as we are talking, the Gen Zs are demanding to be heard, and it has so many issues that I'm going to discuss here, why the Gen Zs are poor as well. So this is one of the topics that is so controversial when it comes to maybe what I'm going to share, but my sharing or what I'm going to talk about is actually statistically proven, and it's facts that are well researched. So mostly I'm going to tackle about the financial situation in Kenya, how most of the 60% of the Gen Zs are actually struggling to make ends meet. You'll always find these people and the Gen Z that are out in the street protesting. You'll find 60% of them, they're actually struggling to provide a bread on the table. And you'll find that most of them are actually graduates. They have degrees, they have even masters, some have even masters. And you'll find that they're struggling to put a bread on the table as having those degrees and certificates at home. Now, my focus is actually to explore so many Gen Zs in finding out what's that hard thing that is making them in achieving stability in finance. So this channel is all about finances, but today, me being one of the Gen Zs, I would like to talk about how the struggle that they're going through in Kenya, in a Kenyan economy, how these struggles are actually not enabling them to achieve financial stability. Now, I'll be talking about 8 ways why the Gen Zs are so poor or are very poor here in Kenya. So welcome again. My name is Mr. Barasa, and let's get started. Number 1 is actually economic factor. So when I talk about economic factor, I'm talking about how the economy is generally. And let me start by saying the economy of Kenya has been always on borrowing. So actually, Kenya has got so many various projects to finance. It comes to building schools, building roads, etc. So we actually borrow and we add on our GDP. Of course, these are gross domestic products, from which we have our own, like maybe from the tea, from agriculture, from the authority port, all that that we get all together. That's what comprises our GDP. Now, after getting our GDP, we go ahead to borrow so that now we can have these to finance our projects. In turns, what it does, it raises our tax. Why? Because it's the only way we can raise this tax to get to pay these people. And this money is being borrowed from overseas, from other countries like China, like US, call them those big fish of the world. Now, after having done this, after they borrow, we add with the GDP, and then the government goes ahead to raise the tax so that we can now be able to pay the borrower the money in those countries. what happens? They raise the commodity prices. And now when these commodities are raised, it does what you call inflation. So what's inflation? Inflation is the loss of purchase power of your money. Right now, if you are in Kenya, if I ask you today, in 1990s or in 2000 and something, or 2001 and 2, what was the price of a bread? It was actually at around 15 shillings maybe. Now today, if you have that 15 shillings, will that 15 shillings be able to buy a bread today? No. Why? Because the bread has actually risen in terms of price. So the 15 shillings that you had, if you're not in Kenya, I'm talking about 15 shillings, which is equivalent to around 0.5 dollars, around there, I'm not so sure. I'm talking about at that point, you find that this bread, you had to buy it with only 15 shillings, but currently you need to add 50 shillings, which comes to 65 shillings. Now, that rising of commodity price, it's what we call inflation, the loss of purchase power of your money. That is the inflation. So what happens? This all comes as a result of borrowing, and then the taxes are raised. After raising the taxes, they go ahead to add tax on those commodities, as the value of the money you have keep increasing in terms of not be able to buy whatever you had bought earlier then. Now, what happens after rising these commodities? It will never go down. It is very rare. For example, a liter of a petrol, when I talk about petrol, I'm talking about gasoline. In Kenya, we call it petrol. At around 2017, was around 80 shillings. Currently, the petrol is being purchased at almost 200 shillings. If you are in Kenya, 200 shillings. For petrol. Yes, for petrol. So that is under the economy. And then come to youth unemployment, which is one way of economy factor that has actually been leading to the growth of unemployment rate in our youths, the Gen Zs. The Gen Zs are the youth, actually. And this is the period where if a youth becomes unemployed, what happens? It affects the financial stability. And on this channel, I've always been talking about financial freedom and finances and finance. So if I'm a youth today, if I don't have a single income or a stream of income, that means I cannot be able to allow myself to build on another streams of income. As I've always been telling you, if you have at least to have at least 5 incomes for you to make it when it comes to financial freedom. So for you to have 5, you must have at least one where you are starting from. So if you cannot be able to have even one, that means you will have what we call financial instability. Now, when it comes to these Gen Zs in Kenya, you'll find most of them have gone to school. They have papers, but they don't have a job at the end of the graduation. So you find that they go ahead to be jobless, and statistically 60% are jobless, and most of them are idle, just seated. Now, when someone is idle, what comes in mind is so many things. And they actually say an idle mind is a devil workshop. It does a lot. That's where you'll hear most of the Gen Zs are maybe using drugs, they are maybe in crime, etc. It's not because they don't want, but it's because they have nothing to do. So that those frustrations is what leads them to do that. And you'll even find some are even going to the protest because of the so far where the government has put them. Now, with all that frustration, someone will go to the protest and do whatever he or she wants to be done. Now, if you don't have a job, it becomes so difficult for you to build wealth, because I believe you must have a stepping stone where you will start now saving your money, saving as you invest, as you increase your income over time. So an economic factor actually talked about economy and youth unemployment as to why the Gen Zs actually are poor in Kenya. So that is number one. Number two is actually employment and education mismatch. This is very, very common issue here in Kenya, as if you are a graduate and you're watching this, kindly you can just comment down there. Many graduates coming out of the campus, coming out of the uh, colleges, you can tell we are actually in a system of school whereby whatever the school is preparing you to do, there is a big mismatch with the employment kind of requirement that will be needed when you are done with your degree, your masters, and or your what. So you'll find that the current state education system in Kenya is not adequately preparing students for the job market. Exactly. The job market with the kind of education they're offering in the system, it's not matching at all. There's something, is a mismatch somewhere where the government has to look for. For example, they'll always have these requirements whereby they'll put in place that they want maybe someone who has much in terms of the skills, but most of the graduates doesn't even have those skills that they want. School actually will just graduate. After graduating, you'll find that there is a skill gap. You don't have that skill that they require. If you're someone who is a graduate, you will always hear when the jobs are advertised, they want someone with a 5-year experience, 2 years experience, but most of the graduates are jobless out there, but they don't even have that skill that those employers need. So in this case, it brings difficulty in terms of these youths, these Gen Zs, in terms of acquiring jobs, because employers actually need more skills or need more requirements in terms of experience. Now, in the for the Kenyan kind of curriculum they're using, it doesn't give much in terms of skills, but rather they usually give a theory kind of education. That's how the system works. Because even when you get to the campus, there's not that much seriousness taken for the skills acquisition kind of education, but rather it's purely on theory. That's where we go ahead to finish the schools and then we go out with no skills or with little skills. But when you go out there, you find that they want more skills from you that you even didn't have when you are getting out of the school. So that brings about this mismatch in terms of employment and education system. Point number three is the cost of living. If you are in Kenya, the cost of living has ever been rising day to day. Yesterday will not be tomorrow, and this it's not something that we can debate on. If you are in Kenya, you know what I'm saying about. I'm talking about. So there has been rising of cost in terms of food, that is groceries, from day to day. It's ever rising. And then you find that now if you're a youth, it becomes so difficult even for you to have that food on your table. And then housing, apply for rent. If you're a youth and you don't have even a nice job, or you have a job but not that stable, it becomes even difficult for you to rent a good room or even a good house, or even just to rent a simple house. And then transportation. So when it comes to transportation, in this I mean maybe even like purchasing car, or even just paying a normal transportation fee from one place to another. So this is one of the rising cost effect that the youths are experiencing at the Gen Zs, as you will find them struggling with food, struggling with housing, struggling with the transportation fees, or even purchasing something that will enable them to locomote from one place to another. So in this case, you'll again have to notice that inflation goes hand in hand with the rising cost of living. So you'll always get that it erodes the purchase power and affects ability of the Gen Zs to save money. Now, if you've been in this channel maybe for a while, you'll always hear me talking about or advocating for saving money. If you cannot save whatever you're earning today, you will never have time to enjoy this life. Why? Because a coin saved today, it actually reduces you to work the coming days. So I'm not talking about saving to save, but I'm talking about saving to invest. So if you cannot save, you can always be assured that you'll always be poor. Not on a bad side, but if you cannot save your money to invest, you'll always have to remain poor. Why? Because the money that you are getting, you are not investing, you're not growing your money, but rather you're just using it to consume. So if you consume all that you have today, what are you expecting to eat tomorrow? What are you expecting to attain your financial freedom with? So in this scenario, even these Gen Zs, even these youths, they don't have even that small to do what? To save. Why? Because things are rising up day to day in terms of commodity prices. As they rise, it becomes so difficult for them to save. Why? Because if you have a job, or if you have an income, or if you're earning wages, if the commodities arise, that means the one that you had, the little that you had, those small wages that you had, will actually not be able to satisfy even your needs. So if you cannot even satisfy your needs like housing, rent, and transportation, will you be able to save? Automatically, no. So that means it even becomes a trouble for you to save. And if you cannot save, you can never attain your financial stability. That is point number 3. Point number 4, there is actually no access of financial resources to the Gen Zs. As a Gen Z, as a youth in Kenya, there is no actually a well-structured kind of a financial planning in terms of how the youths can access the financial resources. So you get to find that there is a credit access, but here they are actually limited to collateral securities. Now, as a youth, as I've just told you, this is someone who has just out of the school, out of the campus, out of college, and she or he has no collateral security. So meaning she or he cannot access any kind of credit to help him boost his or her needs. So meaning there is already a limited factor in that she or he cannot access this credit access. And then this has to be it has to be made affordable in terms of credit acquisition for the youths in Kenya, for them to be able to have something in terms of productivity, in terms of financial kind of making money. So this is actually one of the thing that is actually affecting the youths mostly. And then there is so kind of financial products that lack financial products for the youth in terms of catering their needs. You will always find the Gen Zs, they have so many or so diverse kind of needs that they want to uh, to go into and have them done. But in terms of access to financial resources, there's no such like finance products that will actually focus on these young people, or in terms of the Gen Zs, in terms of acquiring this financial access and have the product that will actually allow them to take those credit and run them in terms of having their needs well catered for. So the government should actually have to look into provision of the financial product that will actually fit into the young or youths or the Gen Zs that will actually have to acquire in terms of acquisition of this access to credit. So that is point number 4. Point number 5, it's financial literacy. This is where now I really like about this one, because this is the most common mistake that we as the Gen Z, we as the youth, we actually do a lot. So you'll find that in Kenya, there's no proper channel in terms of youths having to know about financial literacy. Financial literacy is actually equipping your mind with the money mindset, where you can grow your mind, you can grow your money, in terms of achieving your financial goals as well as attaining your financial freedom. So you'll find that in Kenya, and most of the youth we have actually they actually lack financial literacy, because this is not actually taught in school, and even in the world it's so rare for you to find this being taught in school. There's no school that you are being taught on how to save money. There's no school that you'll be taught on how to use money. There's no school that you'll be taught on how you can do investment. Rather, you'll be told on how to be a banker. Do you know why? If you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe, because this is what I do talk on a day-to-day basis. So it's benefit for you to go ahead, subscribe, like, and share this video, because I'll actually be sharing more on how this is done. So I would like to talk about financial education. As I've just told you, there's no point at where this is actually being taught here in Kenya. And this is why most of the youths will actually not notice about the importance of you on how you can generate money from your one income, if it's bringing out less money as compared to what you could have wanted. There's a way on how, if you have the right mindset in terms of financial literacy, you can always find a way on how you can generate more. You can always multiply. That's why I'm talking about money generating. And then, if you don't have these financial education, you will automatically not know the importance of saving, and then importance of investment, and then the last is equipping yourself with the mindset and etc. So in Kenya, this is the most one most thing that will actually it leads always youth and the Gen Zs in terms of not becoming financially stable, because they have gone ahead not to follow in terms what the rules of money will actually want you to behave with that money. Uh, Having seen about that, there's what we call common finance mistake, or common financial mistakes that will actually lead someone into kind of finance mistakes. And most common here in Kenya, most of the youths, most of the Gen Zs will actually do these mistakes, will be living beyond their means, and most of them also do not save. If you don't save, actually, you are one step to become more poor, or poorer in that case. So most youths don't save in Kenya, and then they even go and have excess debts. if not excess debt, and they will have a bad debt. Remember, if you haven't subscribed on this channel, you are losing a lot. There's a video I talked about do's and do not of a debt in this channel of mine. So if you haven't subscribed, that's where you will be missing out. I've explained well on how to use a bad debt, on how you use a debt in terms of using it on a bad side and then on a good side. A debt can be both good and bad depending on how you are going to use it. So if you haven't subscribed, kindly go ahead, subscribe, because I'll be talking about these in more videos to come. So this has actually been one way of how the youths are actually not making it out and becoming more poor in the streets of Kenya and all over the world if they don't have financial freedom. So it's very important that Kenya has actually, if it's possible, they have a structure in the government set up in terms of acquisition of financial literacy to the youths. Number 6 is cultural and social factors that Kenyans will always have when it comes to family. You'll find that most families in Africa and here in Kenya, you always find that there's actually that finance pressure on young people by supporting extended family. Most families in Kenya will actually do what we call African parents uses their own children as a finance as an insurance policy, whereby you will be told after going to school, if you are not likely to be the firstborn or an elderly sibling to the other, you will be told you have to go to school. After getting to school, getting a job, if you are lucky enough, you have to come back and educate the others. So it's like an insurance even to your parent. So if you go ahead succeed, you must come back and do good for them. And it's like a must. If you don't do it, they're like, what are you doing? Why did they even get you to school to graduate and all that? So you'll find that this affects most youths, most Gen Zs when it comes to delivering in terms of their financial stability. I always say like this, you have to let other people's dream to die for you, for your dream to live. You have to let other people's dream for you to die, to let your dream to live. I'm not trying to say you should not help those that have taken care of you when you are little, where you don't have not to help those siblings of yours. I'm trying to say help them, but be very skeptical when it comes to allocation of your resources, allocation of your money, allocation of your income. If at all you'll give it 100% just to help and you forget about yourself, this is what happens. You'll not be stable in terms of your financials. And that's where we as the youths, we are losing it. Currently, I'll tell you 70% of the youths in Kenya, this is what is affecting them on a high percentage. Africans are like that, are not like the whites where your parent gives you education and then he tells you to go and do your own things. Here in Africa, when you are taken to school, you must come back, help your parents, help your sibling, and in return, you almost forget about yourself and you start crying over financial issues. And at some point, you'll help even your siblings, and for them, when they stand on their feet, they forget about you and they even start talking ill about you, because at that point they will have now done it well in terms of finances, as you, as compared to you, you will be now down, because during your youthful age, you are not much into planning of finances. And if you cannot plan during your youth time as a Gen Z, trust me, this opportunity will never come back, because it's always time. So if you cannot master your time well, then when it goes, it can go forever. So I'm not trying to say you should not help your parents. Do so, but do it very, very strategically when it comes to finances. So that is a society norm that is eating youths in Kenya and as an African continent at large. So I'm not talking about just because I'm me or it's me. It's something that I've seen. It's something that my friends are going through. It's something that it's there. Point number 7 is all about entrepreneurship and innovation. So most youths or most Gen Zs are very innovative. But now when it comes to having to monetize these innovation skills, and in terms of entrepreneurship in Kenya, there's the so-called mentorship and lack of capital. So you'll find that they always have uh, entrepreneurship spirit in terms of being innovative, in terms of they want really to do it when it comes to monetizing their innovation. But now they lack mentorship, as well as a lack of capital to start this innovation. And this is what Kenya is actually not really into in terms of developing or working with the youth in terms of monetizing their innovation. So currently in Kenya, this is one thing that if at all government can work on, it's something that can really push youths and then Gen Zs at large on a bigger step in financial stability. Because one thing I know in the Western countries, this is something that they actually put into place right from the beginning to make sure that innovative ideas in terms of economy, in terms of the issue to deal with the Gen Zs, is actually at first hand when it comes to making sure that innovative innovation and skills, it's really monetized, and it helps the youth in terms of uh, making an income from the innovative idea they have. So if actually Kenyan government can adopt that, it's something that will actually help more youths and the Gen Z, and will actually bring them out of financial instability. Number 8 is all about policy and program initiatives. The government, from the previous government regime, we have always seen that they have always come up with some initiatives in the government to make sure that the youths are out of the idleness, and not doing something better in terms of their finances. And actually what they did so far, it's what we call Kazi Mtaani. Kazi Mtaani is an initiative taken by the former regime government, where they gave youth uh, some jobs to work on a local on a county government level, where they were working and they were being paid weekly wages. This actually made the youths to be more busier or more engaged, but really wasn't a good idea, because at the end it wasn't kind of a real job that was actually for a long term thing. Uh, there's this called exploitation of the labor. This initiative is highly being campaigned by our current president as one of the initiatives that he has put into place to make sure that labor is being exported outside Kenya. That is maybe Saudi Arabia and so other like Germany, so many countries all over the world. Uh, This is a good initiative, to be sincere, but it cannot take all the Gen Zs in Kenya who are jobless. This is a good idea, I cannot lie, but it cannot take every Kenyan. So what the government has to do is just to get outside the box and have to think on a way on how to start industrialization, how to put up industry. That's the only way that the youths will get a job in terms of securing a job, and then from that, the youths can now be innovative enough to start investing in other streams of income. I've always said when you have one stream of income, is like you are just one step ahead or one step backward to be broke. So if you have one, start thinking on how to build 2, 3, 4, 5, because there's no single millionaire who has ever done it with one stream of income. So as a government has to think on how to put up a permanent kind of a solution where Kenyans will not be going outside to go and export labor, whereas we can do something here and be on our own and stand on our feet and have job created, and not being that we are always giving a room on corruption, uh, being that it's that close circle of the president to the president that are always uh, being engaged in corruption, and in return they are going ahead to mismanage the public money and using it on a wrong way. In returns, it goes back to the youth. It pains them to see that these people are actually using this money in a flourish manner just to uh, talk bad at times, and it really pains them. That's where you'll always get them protesting in the streets, as some are being killed, and I'm so sorry for that. That's not good. That's something that should never happen. But at the end, that's the reality, that it's actually not good as to what the government is doing. So the government has to actually do something that will be of a permanent solution. So if you have watched this video until this far, thanks a lot for your time, and it's not ever taken for granted. So I'll see you in the next video, but before you clicking out, or before this video gets at the end, kindly comment on what you've liked most or what you've disliked most, and see you next time. Thank you for your time.